Founded in 1729, Arlington Street continues today as a gathering place for progressive people of faith in the greater Boston area and beyond. We are located at the corner of Arlington and Boylston Streets, across from the Public Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.
Before I begin the sermon, I just want to say about 13 years ago, my schedule had it such that I couldn't always go to my home congregation. And so I would come down here and pop into this church for about maybe half, 3/4 of the service before I needed to go to work. And you should know about yourselves that everyone was always very welcoming. I would sort of come in the back after things had started and sort of tuck into one of the back pews, and then I usually had to get scooting before it was over. But the feeling in here, the people were always so welcome and warm, and that holds true today. So it's a real honor for me to be here, and I wanted to share that. Okay, on to the sermon. I have a confession to make, so we're getting cracking here right from the start. I have a confession to make, and it's this: I love musical theater. And this morning, I'm going to tell you why. As you may have read in my bio, or as Ali said in the introduction, I was a Blue Man in the show Blue Man Group for many years. And on the surface of things, Blue Man and musical theater don't necessarily go hand in hand. And further, people would often ask me if I was an athletic kid because the show was quite strenuous. And in truth, I think they just assumed as much. But to these questions and assumptions, I would gleefully quip, oh no, 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 no. My path to Blue Man was paved with sequins cummerbunds and bow ties. I mean, I was in show choir, for Pete's sake. And I don't know if show choir is a big thing here in New England, but where I'm from, it's serious business. Every spring there was a competition held in Chicago, the big city, and that was the culminating event of the year. Now, I was in middle school when I started really getting into musicals. Fresh off my performance as the Artful Dodger in Oliver at my church, I could be found in my room listening to musicals for hours, memorizing all the lyrics. But now, thankfully, my love was not a solo endeavor. I went to a massive high school with the population of grades 9 through 12 numbering just under 3,000. And so the performing arts department was also huge. There were many, many different choirs, orchestras, jazz bands, all theater classes, and these things you had to audition for. So the fall and spring musicals were a huge deal. In the 9th grade, the fall musical was How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. Now, for those of you who don't know this show, it is an egregiously sexist story. But the orchestration, the score it's really fantastic. So I was cast as third man and ensemble. I was over the moon. My one line took place in an elevator. It was thrilling each time, 3 to be exact, there were 3 performances, that set piece, the elevator door, was opened and I would get hit by the brightness of the lights and then the heat of those very same lights. So fleeting, that one line and that one moment. But performing was only one aspect of this world that drew me in. I loved the rehearsal process. Even when I wasn't one of the people on stage working on something, but rather huddled in a corner, trying not to be too loud while hanging out. In truth, I think I preferred those moments to the ones on stage. There's so much downtime when you're rehearsing, and I cherished all the downtime, those in-between moments, for there is where the deep and lasting connections were made. This community, although I wouldn't have called it that, or even named it that as a kid, I loved it. So this was some of my experience once I began to enter this world. But what really set off this lifelong love was seeing the show, being there in the theater as it unfolded right before me. Now, I do realize that musical theater isn't for everyone. And over the years, I've had many a debate with my Blue Man colleagues about the legitimacy of this art form. When speaking of why they don't like musical theater, why it's not really their thing, they all seem to settle, eventually, on the idea that it's too inauthentic. It's too fake. It's so hokey that the illusion is broken and they can no longer suspend their disbelief. Now, I know this response, and I've even come to anticipate it, but I have to say, I don't understand it. When the emotions get so heightened that the only response is to break out in song and dance, well, this seems to me the most authentic reflection of life, because it's the most like what it feels like in here. While I may be alone in wishing that we broke out in collective song and dance, say on a swan boat in the garden, or maybe while leaving Life Alive around the corner, I don't think I'm alone in being viscerally moved when witnessing someone express what is in their heart, witnessing someone express what stirs their soul to move. This is how it was when I was a kid, and this is how it still is today when I hear the end of Act 1 number from Les Mis, One Day More. Something comes over me. I feel it bubble up from within, and the next thing I know, the exterior world, the time and space around me, it starts to slacken and blur in an expansive manner, round and full. It feels like a shedding or a losing of myself, a giving over that renders me as whole as I've ever felt. And I tear up almost every time because I can't help it. Because I'm alive, and in that moment, I've been reminded so. So here I was with these experiences of aliveness, both on stage and in the audience. And are they the same? No, and yes. No, being on stage and sitting in the audience are not the same. And yet they both are immersive, but in different ways. Perhaps a better way to say it is they both offer a person the opportunity of immersion, but it's up to them to decide the level at which that steeping occurs. And so this is where it is the same. Where it is the same is because it's a yes. Because what my love of musical theater has taught me is that it's a posture. So be you on stage or sitting in the audience, musical theater is an orientation to the world, an ethos, if you will, and one I'm calling jazz hands. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with this term, this bit of choreography, it looks something like this, or like this, or you get the idea. Now, inside this gesture, I contend, is a whole worldview. For example, jazz hands is not a yes, but response to life, but rather a yes, and. Jazz hands doesn't mire itself in how things won't work. Jazz hands is all about how it will work. Jazz hands doesn't suffer false humility or stifle its emotions in the name of keeping up appearances. No. Jazz hands rejoices in the successes of life and names and claims its sorrows. Jazz hands seeks to employ the whole person, body, mind, and spirit, in its participation with life. Jazz hands grabs a handful of earth, smells it, throws it up in the air, does a couple of kickball chains, lands on that same knee in the same dirt. Because here's the important bit. Jazz hands is a choice. This orientation, this posture to life, it's a choice. And this is a choice that has not and does not always come easy to me. I come from a family where the prevailing posture was one of girding anticipation. One had to gird themselves for when the other shoe was going to drop, or when invariably they would be kicked in the teeth by life. My experience tells me that this kind of orientation to life is not inherent, but learned. And from what I know, I think my folks had cause to be suspicious of life. And I certainly have, therefore, lived a fair amount of my life with one foot out the door. This is not to blame my folks per se, but it is to acknowledge the power of of environment, and certainly the power of inertia. One choice begets another, and so on, to the point that you find yourself one day wondering, how did I get to be like this? Such is and has been and can be the case with me. And so I need this jazz hands posture. I need an orienting principle that doesn't view life adversarially. In jazz hands, one recognizes the futility in expecting people to do what we would wish them to do. Rather, it sees itself as one with the many, going about its day just like everyone else. Its agency is in the way it expands a person towards compassion, nuance, and grace. It is applicable to every aspect of life. So to that end, I've been thinking that this jazz hands may be one of the missing ingredients in our work towards collective liberation. This world is broken in so many ways, and there is so much that needs our urgent attention. And yet our culture is rife with apathy and cynicism, which feel both an understandable response to feeling besieged and wholly disheartening and angering at the same time. And so to this I say that the seemingly frivolous, the oft-thought vapid play that is the result of jazz hands is not blind to the ills of this world. Quite the opposite. Remember, liberation is not a joyless endeavor. Quote, "The time is ripe to do right," end quote. Amen, Reverend King. So we must ourselves be ripe. We must ripen ourselves with the love that is the result of playing our way into a better world. As goes individual liberation, so goes the collective. Jazz hands is not naive, nor does it live with its head in the sand. My first therapist said to me once, if you're going to fall apart, why not fall apart into hope? This is jazz hands, because jazz hands says yes to the unknown. It says yes to mystery. And in so doing, it says yes to creation. It is the same as the let from our reading today. There is an abiding in what is happening, rather than a forcing of what we want to be happening. Jazz hands, it doesn't abdicate its will, but rather knows that it has limits, and it therefore seeks collaborators. Is this not as Kai Miller proclaims it? The world would echo itself until even silent dreams had been allowed. Allowed. This word allowed is so important because it reminds us of our choice, of our will, and our agency. When I was a kid, amidst all the chaos and bottled up feelings, I wouldn't have known about choice and agency. And certainly, allowing brought with it some dodgy consequences. But when I was struck by the era of musical theater, something new to hold on for dear life. Something new that over time, I would lose my ability to suspend my disbelief. That I would begin to turn from the unknown, from mystery, in favor of those people and things that whispered of control, and worst of all, certainty. But to what end, I ask? To what end? Instead, something within and without knew that I was going to need a radically different way of being in the world. Maybe one of the reasons why I love musical theater so much is because I experienced my childhood as rigid with emotional restraint. And that as a result, I want a world where everything hangs out in the open, where everyone wears their emotions on their sleeve, and what you see is what you get. But mainly I wonder, how did I get so lucky as to have been given this refuge, this place of joy and safety and of love? Psychologist and Christian mystic James Finley speaks to the particular way a mystical teacher offers guidance. Quoting this Soto Zen master Shunryu Suzuki, he says, quote, The primary task of the teacher in these traditions is to give witness to the seeker that what the seeker seeks is real. That as you know your heart has not deceived you because you sense that you're in the presence of someone who has been realized. And that whatever drew me here, I'm sitting in the presence of someone who bears witness that it's real. And now that I know it's real, that I not break faith with my awakened heart. Let me say some of that again. Witness to what the seeker seeks is real. And now that I know it's real, that I not break faith with my awakened heart. I was in the car the first time I heard this quote. I was driving somewhere, I don't know, maybe running errands, I don't remember. What I do remember are the tears that were surely the result of brushing up against truth with a capital T. My belief is that this is what happened to me when musical theater came into my life as a mystical teacher. And the deep seeking, unknown to me consciously, I happened upon a people and a posture that showed me, that witnessed to me, that what I sought was real. And by the grace of God, I did not turn my back. When my heart had been touched by the divine, I did not turn. This was the mending. This was the allowing. This was the let that the poet Kai Miller speaks of. We find ourselves so wearied by the state of this world. And in the face of so much pain, how do we know that what we seek is real? Because our tears tell us so? Because our aching bellies tell us so? Because we're alive and we come here in this beautiful sanctuary to be reminded so. We come here to be reminded so. In this place, we witness to one another that what we seek is real. And deeper still, in this place, we endeavor not to break faith with our awakened hearts. Courage. Over this coming week, take time for frivolity, for foolish abandon. Seek that which makes your heart warm and your eyes tear. For there is great mending in this for you and the world. And for God's sake, throw a jazz hand or two in. Amen. As we begin our benediction, I invite those of you in the Zoom room to please reach out your hands and touch the sides of your square. And those of you in the sanctuary, please raise your hands, palm up. Let's send loving kindness to the people to your left and to your right. Loving kindness to the person on either side of you and to the people on either side of them. Send out love into this beloved spiritual community and feel it coming back to you. As you feel it coming back, bring your hands back to your heart center to carry the love that is the spirit of this congregation with you wherever you go. And now I offer the words of Wayne B. Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. May love hold us all until we meet again. The service begins when the service ends. Amen.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
We are located at the corner of Arlington and Boylston Streets, across from the Public Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.